Good evening, everybody. Thanks for being here at tonight's Red Barn event. My name is Tucker. I'm a community programs educator here at Wenatchee River Institute. We are a nonprofit with the mission to connect people, communities, and the natural world. So joining me tonight from WRI is Joshua here, and our other community programs educator. And he's going to be doing some tech here to live stream the event for people watching at home, and also making a recording to upload later for people who missed the event. We've also got Paul over here volunteering. Paul's also on our board of directors. He's gonna be serving drinks tonight. And also want to thank Book for All Seasons for being here. We've got Randy in the back selling some of Derek's books tonight. So Wenatchee River Institute works towards our mission through youth and community education programs. Our youth programs deliver hands-on curricula up and down the Wenatchee Valley and along the Columbia with our traveling naturalist program, which just started back up this week for the school year. And our community programs reach people through our many Red Barn events like this one, our seasonal walks, workshops, and our community garden. Another aspect of WRI is our effort to connect Indigenous peoples to their ancestral lands here. So I'd like to take a moment to read our land acknowledgement. This land acknowledgement was created alongside the Shimpishwashu people. We're spreading the message they wish to be spread to the public. The land Wenatchee River Institute sits on is the ancestral homelands of the Shimpishwashu or Pasquosa or Wenatchee people. The Shimpishwashu, meaning people in between, had villages positioned along the Wenatchee River and surrounding areas. Their ancestral homeland extends from the Cascade Ridge throughout what is now known as the Wenatchee and Okanagan valleys. The culture and economy of the Shimpishwashu people centers on taking care of the land. They fish, hunt, gather roots and berries, basket-making materials, and medicines. The Shimpishwashu are named within the Yakima Treaty of 1855. Language to establish the Wenatchee Reservation was never followed through, even with the needed surveying completed. Many Shimpishwashu now live on the Colville Reservation, 150 miles northeast of Leavenworth. They were forced off their land here, and the U.S. government moved them to this reservation. The Shimpishwashu people are still alive today. They continue to practice their culture, harvest their traditional foods and medicines, and hold their ceremonies passed down from their ancestors. Most people won't see or notice them, but they continue to be on the land they're connected to. Their traditional language is Inhamchin, an interior Salish dialect, and we would like to welcome you all by saying hello in their language, Tilhusht. We offer this land acknowledgement as the first step to amplifying Indigenous voices and recognizing the harm done to them as a people. We stand as an ally to recognize their connection to the land and their rights to practice their culture on these sacred lands. We encourage all to learn more about the Indigenous peoples of the place you call home. The Wenatchee River Institute is committed to sharing this land acknowledgement and following up with other actions to educate and be respectful. All right, thank you. I'd also like to take a moment to thank our sponsors for Red Barn events. So we'll put those up here on the screen in a minute, but I'll read them off here. We've got City of Leavenworth, Icicle Brewing Company, Rhine House, South, North Central Washington Audubon Society, Munchen House, Mitchell, Reed, and Schmitten Insurance, Obertal Inn, Chocolat, Tierra Learning Center, Gustav's, Sleeping Lady Mountain Resort, Barron House, The Cove Resort, Rimmer and Roeder Construction, and Riverfront Rock Gym. So thank you so much to our sponsors for making this and all our other Red Barn events possible. And as I mentioned earlier, this presentation is going to be streamed over Zoom for those of you viewing at home. And during the presentation, if you could hold all of your questions until the end, so it's a little bit more streamlined for people at home on the computer. So without further ado, I would like to introduce our speaker, Derek Sheffield. Derek's books include Cascadia Field Guide, Art, Ecology, Poetry, which we'll be talking about tonight. Not for Luck, selected by Mark Doty for the Wheelbarrow Books Poetry Prize, and Dear America, Letters of Hope, Habitat, Defiance, and Democracy. He teaches at Wenatchee Valley College and is on the faculty of Western Colorado University's low-residency MFA program. Poetry editor of terrain.org. He can be found in the forests and rivers along the eastern slopes of the Cascade Range near Leavenworth, Washington. So please welcome Derek Sheffield. Oh, you guys got it.
Thanks, Tucker. Okay. Thank you, sir. Here we go. Oh. Okay. Hi. I brought this graphic with me tonight. 5 years ago, I set out with my co-editors, C. Marie Furman and Elizabeth Bradfield, to make a field guide that would include poetry and art. You've probably heard about STEM, right? I love STEM. I'm crushing on scientists all the time. I love scientists. But we like STEAM. We like STEAM, right? And over the 5 years of this bookmaking process, something magical happened. And if you make art, and I bet there are many of you in here who do, if you make art, you know that one of the really beautiful, amazing things about making art is how it puts you in touch with this process that is so engaging and mysterious that the Greeks thought, it was gods. The muses were filling us when we were making art, and that was that poem making, that painting making, whatever it is you're making, that making process that the three of us engaged in through 5 years, through the pandemic, hundreds of hours of Zoom time. It was a beautiful, beautiful work to be able to do during that really difficult time. When we finished making the book, we realized that we did have a field guide that included art and poetry, but we had also made something something new, a collection that has no exact analog that we could think of. And I want to tell you a little bit about that tonight, that process, and also share with you some of those voices and those visions. So this is a map of Cascadia. When I first started thinking about this, it was actually my friend and editor-in-chief at terrain.org, who I think is joining us tonight. Do you see a Simmons Bunton on there? He said he'd be here. So he's supposed to be beaming in from Tucson tonight. But anyway, he knew me, that I was as much science geek, naturalist as I was poet. And he's here. Okay. And what happened is a literary field guide, kind of like this, came out for the Sonoran Desert, and then another one came out for Southern Appalachia. And Simmons was saying, Sheffield, you got to do one for the Pacific Northwest, man. Come on. And, that happened for a couple, 2 or 3 years. And I was like, oh man, I think that's going to be a lot of work. And I had no idea how much work it was going to be. It was actually 10 times as much as I thought. And so when I finally came down to it and I started thinking about it and started working with my co-editors, we realized it really needed to be Cascadia. We really wanted to use that term intentionally because that's part of the work the book is doing, is getting us to think in terms of a bioregion instead of geopolitical boundaries. And in the 90s, McCloskey, a sociologist at Seattle University, drew a beautiful map and started us on this path towards thinking about this region as a series of interconnected watersheds. And that's where this region comes from. It starts in Prince William Sound and moves down through BC to Northern California, the Eel River, and east to the Continental Divide, a little bit of Idaho, a lot of Idaho, pinch of Nevada, and smidge of Wyoming. So let's see what I have next. There we go. Yeah. When we set out to organize this book, we realized that we didn't want to use traditional groupings, more Linnaean groupings. Linnaeus gave us a lot, and names are beautiful and essential. But we wanted to emphasize cohesion over division. And so what we did is we conceived of 14 communities and organized our beings. We like the term being instead of species. Species is a fine word. It feels a little bit like the white lab coat too much to us, a little dry. We didn't want dry. We wanted sloppy wet, and so we like beings. We like, there's about 10 to 12 beings in each of these communities, these 13 communities. And then there's one community that has just one member in it, the human community. We thought we'd stick Homo sapiens in there too. And so that's how we decided to organize this, was by these communities. And again, as much as we could to emphasize cohesion over division. And you can see the names of these communities and also the names of the artists of these communities. Another decision we made was, well, do we need to have the same artist for the whole book? Like, for some consistency, right? And very quickly we were like, no. We realized that from the beings that we were going to select to the artists, to the poets, we wanted as much diversity as we could possibly get. And you can see that. You can see that in all these different styles. The other thing we did, and you can see in these styles, I think reflected too, is that we reached out to many Native artists. I think 4 of our artists are Native, and we have many Native writers included. And considering the nature of this book, that seemed perfect to us. So let's just click through and get a sense for some of this art. This is the art for Raven. Chloe Kavanaugh from Alaska. It's one of my favorites in the book. I love, and I did some growing in this process too, because I have, shelves of field guides. I love field guides. I love Sibley. I went birding with him when he was here, I love those. I love scientific illustration. It's marvelous. But you know what? Art brings something else in. What exactly it is, I can't say. And that's what I love about art, because the answer, you can't say that the answer is like 41, or isn't that the Hitchhiker's Guide? What is it? 42. Dang it. See, math is why I became an English major. Anyway, but I love Chloe's raven here. Corey lives in Pullman, and she did the muskeg for us. We love the whimsy that she brings to her work. Claire Emery in the Montaigne community did these amazing woodcuts. There's actually a show of the art from the book at Wenatchee Valley College in the Mac Gallery right now for about 2 or 3 more weeks. It'll be showing there. Not all of the art, but much of the art and some of the poems as well. And some of Claire's work is there. There's Chloe's. For each community, we asked the artists to make an overview piece of the beings, showing the beings in community with one another. And you can see how they approached it with their different visions. Rhea Friday, really so great to get her in here. She's traditionally a glass artist, but just really made some beautiful work for the open ocean community. Emily Poole, she's down in Eugene. We just got to see her. We just had an 8-day, 8 days, 8 events, 8 different locations between Bellingham and Eugene and everywhere in between a couple of weeks ago. I'm still panting. I tell you what, it feels good to be home with you all here. I'm thank you, Wenatchee River Institute. Did I say thank you yet, by the way? Thank you. I did see a donation box over there too. Oh, I see there's money in it too. Okay. Is that for me or for you guys? For you guys. Okay. We were so excited to get Joe Fedderson's work, Colville tribal member. I've been admiring his work for years. His work is shown at Wenatchee Valley College at least once that I've seen. And his niece was one of my best poetry students ever at the college. Carly came through, and we have his work for Human. And Rachel Kessler, you can love all the humor in here. I love how her work makes me smile every time I see it. And Justin Gibbons, this guy in Thorpe. You know Thorpe near Yakima? These watercolors. Some of them are in the show. Now, I don't know if this is germane to the discussion tonight or not, but I'm thinking about this. I have Justin's permission. This might be my first tattoo. I mean, look at that dipper. Is that amazing or what? So that's a lot of the work that this book did, is bringing all this being-centric art and poems. We gathered most of the poems from existing books. About 90 of 128 we found from just combing our shelves and scouring the literature. But then there were about 40 beings, like Western Ridged Mussel. No one had written a poem for Western Ridged Mussel and 10-line June Beetle. Come on, people. So all these poems came into being and this artwork, you know, and some of these people had never thought to do this sort of being-centric work before, like Garrett Hongo and Rick Barrett, these marvelous, much lauded poets, National Book Award longlisters and Pulitzer finalists and so forth. And you know, when we solicited them for this, they said, "Oh my gosh, this was marvelous. This is, you know, this is going to change." Oh, hey, now, so because Simmons Bunton is here, I have to make sure and plug the terrain.org fundraiser that we have going on right now. And I want to tell you that Justin's King Salmon is part of a Cascadia package. Terrain.org, by the way, is the world's oldest online journal dedicated to the art and writing of place. I'm the poetry editor for it. So far, you know, he hasn't fired me yet. And as I said, Simmons and terrain.org were instrumental in this book becoming a reality. So we do have this fundraiser going on. You do have an opportunity to bid on Justin's work. I can't believe it's only $125 right now. This includes a broadside and a fine cloth bag that the press had made for the book. In addition, and a signed copy signed by C. Marie and Liz and me. But please do not bid on this, because I'm going to bid on this. That watercolor of the king salmon, oh my gosh. Yeah, so it's not for you. Forget about it. These aren't the salmon you're looking for. Oh, and so just go to terrain.org and you won't see anything about that. Zena Lunsford in the Pine Forest community. I think it's time for me to read a little bit from this book. What do you think? Let's, we're in the Pine Forest tonight. So, we thought about having biologists read, or not read, but write, getting a biologist as a co-editor to write some of these species accounts, is what you would normally call them in science, these species accounts. But then we thought, no, we can do that. We three editors, C. Marie, Liz, and Derek, have a lot in common in that we're naturalist poets, but then there's also like essential important differences about the three of us in terms of who we are. We're looking through different lenses because of central aspects of our identity, and that was important. And so the three of us took on that task of writing these species accounts, which we actually call being stories. And for each community, we write a community story. This is the one for Pine Forest. Welcome to Pine Forest. Here is a landscape vibrant with towering ponderosa pine, chattering yellow pine chipmunk, the taps of various members of the woodpecker clan, and the oh so sweet smell of pine in sun. This is a community whose tallest trees, save for western larch, don't change color with the season, but whose foliage, thanks to beings such as arrowleaf, balsam root, and mountain ash, run from bright yellow in summer to bright red in autumn. In spring, when the breeze is just right, you might spy a saffron yellow cloud rising from the crown of every pine tree. Even the thought of so much pollen released into the air might make some sneeze. The pine forest offers so much to so many, from cone seeds for sustenance to shelter from sun, wind, and snow to nesting habitat. As snags, also called wildlife trees, Pine offers the ideal home for beings who nest in cavities, such as northern flying squirrel, western bluebird, raccoon, pygmy nuthatch, pine martin, and flammulated owl. Up and down their tree trunks and draping their branches, you will typically find several kinds of lichen happily growing, from the tiny chartreuse shrub-like forms of wolf lichen to the long, dark strands of horsehair. Cascadian pine forests have provided homes and nourished people for millennia. And as we still harvest trees from this community, we can also look to it for connection. As in all forests, that connection is sustained by the communication and sharing of resources provided by fungal networks within the soil itself. In Japan, many people receive this spiritual gift as they practice Shinrin-yoku, or forest bathing. Not only do we feel the spiritual enrichment of time within the forest, but researchers have also studied and documented the many health benefits of taking one's body among the trees to simply be, to breathe the living air, listen to the voices of other beings, smell sun-warmed duff, see light glinting along a strand of silk, and feel at home. Those of us who know the pine forest have felt this in our bones. One of the things I think we all love this, is that people will read these being stories and they'll say, oh, that was you wrote that one, right? Like, yeah, no, that was C. Marie. And they can't tell who's who. And the reason is because although we all generated the original being stories and community stories, then we went back and we edited each other's, and our voices just started to harmonize a little bit with one another. You can hear in that community story that some of the work of this book is to reveal, to paraphrase Thomas Berry, to reveal Cascadia as a communion of subjects, not a collection of objects. So you will not find an it in this book. There are no its. If you find an it in this book, Simmons Bunton will pay you $20 from the terrain.org fundraiser fund. They are proper nouns. They are they. I have to tell you too, what was it? Oh, as I was reading that, you know, the work I've been doing right here in Leavenworth with Wenatchee River Institute, with Wenatchee Valley College, with Dan Stevens, my longtime teaching partner, Susan Ballinger, Heather Murphy, all of these people influenced this book, and they're in here. Dan Stevens, Dr. Dan Stevens, some of you may know, he was the one who first taught me about snags, or, well, actually we call them wildlife trees. Yeah, okay, I love that. Janet Millard contributed to this book. Because of her, we have some of the most up-to-date spotted owl data in here. And actually this book is a more accurate source on spotted owl habitat than other field guides that you'll find. And that's because Janet's been working with spotted owls in this region for 20-some years. And those interviews, those conversations, those friendships. I talked to Randy Lewis, wonderful Colville tribal member in our region. He's done so much for our community. Scott Bailey at the art department at WVC. All of these people are in here. This place, this, you know, it all started right here, and I love that. And I'm coming back home with you here tonight. Okay, how about a little poem? This is a poem by Barbara Drake. It's called The Bear. Seeing a black bear by the road, I shout, "It's a bear! It's a bear!" And cover my eyes, I think, because I like seeing it so much. That's black bear. And as those of us who live in the pine forest know, black bear is here too. Oh, we got some slug fans tonight. So Carly Feddersen actually is supposed to be, Carly might be tuning in tonight. Joe's niece, she's supposed to be working on a bolo tie, a banana slug bolo tie for me. I'm super excited about it. She's really good. She's made them before. So, and here's banana slugs being story. And, so, we think of like, there's science in here, there's cultural that lives alongside cultural knowledge, that lives alongside poetry, that lives alongside art. And so it's not just one or two legs we're standing on, but four, and we think it's more stable that way with this theme. Banana slug. Yeah, okay, here it is. It's all about the slime. Slime for sliding over sharp grit or clinging to smooth glass. Strong slime for dangling like a spider. Mouth-numbing slime for predator deterrence. Body slime for keeping moist. Scented slime for attracting mates, and more. Slug slime is an underappreciated and wondrous substance. Look down. Stretched on the path or to one side in Cascadia's wetter habitats, you're likely to see banana slug. Olive-skinned, black-dotted, sometimes ivory pale or overall green. Banana slug is unmistakable and unmistakably large, up to the length of, well, a banana. No other unshelled gastropod of this forest bests you, banana slug. Indeed, you are the second largest slug in the world. If someone picks you up, your slime gunks to their hands like rubber cement. If we hunker and bend to you, you may relax, showing first your lower sensory antennae, which search for the chemical signals of organic matter you seek as food, then your upper eye stalks, each topped with the bead of an eye that senses light and motion. You might even, if you are feeling relaxed and unthreatened, open your pneumostome, a hole on the right side of your mantle through which you breathe. Banana slug is a key part of the temperate rainforest community, gliding along, spreading spores, scraping decaying matter on the forest floor with a rasp-like radula, a structure that is both teeth and tongue. While it might seem that such an unarmored, slow-moving being would be vulnerable, the slime protects banana slug. There's much more to say about this being, especially about their hermaphroditic nature and fascinating mating habits. For now, we'll stop, suggesting you look deeper at what perhaps was once thought of as a pest in your garden. These underfoot and often maligned beings can live up to 7 years and are very important recyclers of what falls to Cascadia's mossy earth. So, one of the things that's different about this is, some of this information is coming from our own we, just like all the contributors of this book, have deep ties to this region. We've grown up here, we've lived here a long time, we've been shaped by this place, and it's going back into this hymn to this place and this place's beings. But two, we did plenty of research as well, through interviews and books and so forth. And the voice, you know, I mean, you can hear in the voice, we wanted to introduce people to these beings, and what do they look like? How big are they? And so forth. What do they smell like? And the voice it's pretty great, because this is being used as a text in like K-12. We just found out in Bellingham a couple of weeks ago, it's used as a text in a homeschool support program. So like for K-12 students, it's being used in the Bush School in Seattle at the private school, and it's being taught at universities across the region. One of my former students, Finley, just emailed me yesterday. She's down at Oregon State University now, and she's like, "Hey, Sheffield, everybody's walking around with Cascadia Field Guide in their hands." And so we love that the voice appeals to such a range of people, and that's what we were going for. And of course, we selected the most wonder and connection inducing information from where we could. Here is, well, one of the, you know, different things about this book too is our selection of beings. We're a little bit non-traditional in some respects, but one of the early beings that we realized that we all really needed to have in the collection was cryptobiotic soil, living earth. There are so many reasons to tread with care in the shrub steppe. One of them is cryptobiotic soil, whose name means hidden life. If you are lucky enough to encounter this being, which is typically darker than the surrounding soil and bumpy looking, kneel next to it carefully for a close look and imagine the wonder of seeing 1,000-year-old Sitka spruce in Cascadia's temperate rainforest. This elder being you are in the company of might be 5 times as ancient, maybe more. Cryptobiotic soil, also known as cryptogamic crust and biological soil crust, is as vulnerable as they are venerable. One errant foot or hoof step may take a century to repair. A special collective of lichens, cyanobacteria, mosses, fungi, and algae, cryptobiotic crust is vitally important in that they add nutrients to the soil and protect it from erosion. Imagine what all that prairie wind would do were it not for the anchoring grace of this being. And here's the poem that my co-editor, C. Marie Furman, wrote for our book for this being, called Cryptobiotic Sonnet. I do see that some of you are following along in your hymnals. This is on page 248. The ashes of my beloved tasted like nothing, and swallowing them didn't bring him back. They still feel warm, my mother said, as we fed him to the river. He and I were pregnant then, but I bled the unknowable into soil. There were no songs. I often walked the desert looking for proof of my ancestors. I once found a Clovis point, unbroken by years. cattle hooves or floods, an icicle with an amber heart and tip dipped in blood. I felt only its primeval edge when I pressed it to my tongue. I buried the artifice in soil whose name means hidden life, an ancient skin which binds together the dead in layers to hold new lives. I'll be dead before the scar I made heals by the beautiful work of rot, which I carry now beneath my fingernails like 10 black and waning moons. This is Juncos by William Stafford. Little poem, very short, don't blink. They operate from elsewhere, some hall in the mountains. Quick visit, gone. Specialists on branch ends, craft union. I like their clean little overalls. Listen, for this, just a little bit of a history lesson in Liz Bradfield's poem called Succession, the poem for Pacific Madrona. In the neighborhood called Magnolia, they've planted magnolia trees to right an old mistake made when George Vancouver's crew saw thick-leaved madronas on bluffs over Elliott Bay and misnamed them. Magnolia trees outside the coffee shop, magnolia trees, native to this continent, but not its northwest coast, land of cedar and salal. They are leafed out, staked up witness to our desire for truth-making. Outside the post office on Magnolia, magnolias. Magnolias glossy and tended by the antique store, fenced in the sidewalk by the bus stop. Meanwhile, the madronas, whose peeling trunks, burnt orange and sleek, colors layering from Granny Smith to pomegranate, papery with curls I peeled and scrawled, here since the last glaciation, slow growing and picky, waste away in neighborhood parks while beautification committees worry and try, unable to hear what for madronas is truth. What the trees want is burning, to burn among huckleberry and Oregon grape, then bud from the leftover roots, moldered by lawn and dogs and all we brought with us to make things nice. The madronas wait for lightning, for some untended spark, to argue their need against our clipped and tended ideas of care. On the note of those clipped and tended ideas of care, I wanted to take a little very related swerve here tonight and talk to you about the public comment period for the reintroduction of grizzlies in the North Cascades that's happening right now. I think until November or into November 13th. My sources tell me November 13th to be precise. And I have to say that thinking about Liz's poem and all those magnolias being planted and those clipped and tended ideas of care points me to one reason that I am really in favor of grizzlies, brown bear coming back to the North Cascades. And it has to do with what I've been thinking about as an ecology of awe. You see, I've hiked among grizzlies in Alaska, in Denali, in Montana. I've seen grizzly bears when it was just me and a pack, and I don't even know if I had pepper spray on me. I think Ben had it. He had the pepper spray. He had one of those big ones in a holster, you know. I had the bell. I had the cowbell. I was going, "Hey bear, ding ding, hey bear," you know. And I'll tell you what, it was an experience of awe that I'll never forget in my life. I'm so grateful to have been out and been able to go out on this 7-day off-trail compass and map. Turned out we had no idea where we were the whole time. Excursion. This was before the digital world, man. I mean, I know I don't look that old, but I am. And oh my gosh, it was so amazing. I mean, there's no bus metal between you. I mean, you remember something about what it is to be a human being on this planet when you see an animal like that. My God. So yeah, awe. That's one reason why I want them back. Awe. Let's talk about some more reasons. Ecology of, you know, and two, I was thinking, you know, Henry David Thoreau said, in wildness is the preservation of the world. Very germane to this. I love that thought because he wasn't talking about just the wildness of an ecosystem. He was talking about the wildness in each of us, in our imagination, in our being. I want to say a few things to your head, and then I want to speak to your heart in terms of grizzlies. Now, the thing is about having a grizzly. I mean, they are an apex predator, sort of, but honestly, you know, they mostly eat. Well, that's actually the next graphic. They mostly eat plants, and they're really important in dispersing. Oh yeah, see, we've got to compete. So she's going to vote no because they're going after the morels. Oh man. Okay, we got to take this morel off here. Okay, so they mostly eat plants, and as they do that, there's nutrient distribution, there's seed dispersal, and in fact, there's some data that shows that some plants have already been suffering for the lack of grizzlies in these habitats, where they've done research on this in California and Canada, because there's efforts going on in California to bring back the grizzly down there. And they do a bunch of digging, they're tilling and stuff all the time as they go after some small rodents and stuff. I saw that firsthand when I was hiking in Alaska. I saw where they had been digging for ground squirrels and so forth. So they are an apex predator, but it's not an exact analog to wolves. But it is kind of similar to wolves, as you know, when we brought wolves back to Yellowstone and it changed everything. And I know that guy, Doug Smith, the retired lead biologist of the wolf research at Yellowstone, and it was astonishing. They had no idea how much it would change the ecosystem, the very course of the rivers. The grizzly will also have an effect on the ecosystem, on our montane community in the North Cascades. And we've been missing that. It's like, you know, we've been working on one kidney for a while. I was talking to my friend Dan Stevens earlier today, and he likened the community without grizzlies as being a body without an essential organ. You know, we can kind of limp along for a while, but eventually it's going to catch up to us. But this kind of shows you a little bit of what I've been talking about here. There is this public comment period, and there are going to be some community forums. Gordon Congdon is here, my grizzly pal. And you can see that the National Park Service and the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service and many local citizens, like this one, think that Alternative C will provide the best path forward. And that's where we would redesignate the North Cascades grizzly as an experimental population. And that way, we could do some research as well, and there would be some control. We're talking, yeah. So anyway, if you need more information, Gordon has brought some flyers here tonight. There's also some graphics in the back, and he's kindly allowed me to share his email with you as well. Let's see here. Yeah, I think, but he said no Amway. He doesn't, if you're into Amway, just keep, he doesn't want that. Okay. Oh, there we go. Now let me speak to your heart. So I was talking to your head. Now I'm talking to your heart. Here's the other reasons why we should have them back. Between 1827 and 1859, 3,788 grizzly hides were loaded onto the Hudson Bay Trading Company ships from trading posts in the area. 3,788. We trapped them, we poisoned them, we shot them. The last sighting of grizzly in the North Cascades was in 1996 near Glacier Peak. 27 years. They were here until we eradicated them, till we killed them, till we trapped them. The timing of this is, we've been working with Ken Burns. You may have seen the Buffalo documentary. Kind of a parallel there. It's the right thing to do to bring them back. It's the moral thing to do. As Aldo Leopold would say in thinking about the land ethic, it's the right thing to do because it tends to improve the biotic health of the community. No, that's my my 2 bits, but let me share brown bear's being story with you. It's on page 143 in the hymnals. If in the woods you come upon a strange trail unlike any you've ever seen, not a thin strip of worn to dirt, but plates of bare earth in alternating left-right alignment, You've come upon the work of brown bear. The path won't go far, 50 feet or so, where it stops and starts. Look up. Most likely you'll find kinked hair stuck in spruce bark and sap, maybe even claw marks overhead. In Southeast Alaska's biggest islands, where brown bear thrives in densities unlike anywhere else on Earth, these paths are calling cards, places where bear leaves scent for those who follow and smells the passages of others, discerning male from female, young from old. That nose leads bear as well to salmon, deer, sedge, blueberry, and currant, and I guess morels. In the bear, you see among the Sitka spruce, black bear. Oh, is the bear black bear or brown bear? Brown bear can be black, glorious cinnamon, or blonde. Brown bear's ears are fairly small, their nose more dog-like, and they have a rounded hump on their shoulders. All the better for digging. Grizzly bear, brown bear, bruin, all Ursus arctos, though there are differences between coastal brownies who gather and grow to impressive size along salmon runs, and grizzlies of the interior mountains, who are smaller, blonder, and have larger ranges to compensate for their more dispersed food resources. Subspecies of brown bear live also on Kodiak Island, on the Kamchatka Peninsula, and in Europe. The, quote, lumpers and splitters have played with brown bear species and subspecies for centuries. What science knows is that brown bear walked into Cascadia from Asia, first arriving around 60,000 years ago. There is so much to learn and appreciate about the life of brown bear, from females' delayed implantation to the smallness of the cubs born in the winter den, about the size and weight of a bear-shaped squeeze bottle of honey. From the specialized fishing techniques of individuals to the ways they nurture forests alongside salmon streams by carrying fish carcasses away to eat undisturbed, bear is sheltered by and adds to the wealth of the forest they stroll through. People who live aware of brown bear alongside them have come to their own understandings of how to walk together in the woods, how to understand the relationships and the long histories we share with this being. Seek their wisdom. And then here's the Being poem by Lois Red Elk. And I invite you to think about this in terms of how we might live in relationship with this being. This is an excerpt from a longer piece called We Call Them Hu Nunpa. Mado Pejuta. In early spring, Grandma would begin making offerings for the bear and the plants. She said it was during the days after hibernation that the plant nation would release their scent into the defrosting soil, an aroma so full that waves of awakening air vibrated above the stillness of melting snow. Grandma knew this as she studied the hungry bears, looking for healing nourishment after long months with Mother Earth. She said the two nations work together to sustain life, the animals and the plants. Bears can smell their medicine miles off, she said, and knew where to dig for them, thus sharing knowledge of the best roots or bear medicine. Mado Pejuta. Grandma would send her nephews to the mountains with handmade deerskin pouches filled with pemmican and wrapped in sage and sweetgrass. These gifts were for those who harvested the bear medicine. She said this was proper, to appease the bear and the plants, as only they could begin the harvest of all sacred medicines. Isn't that beautiful? We're just so grateful to the poets, all the writers who shared their voices with us. like Lois Red Elk. And my co-editor, C. Marie, it's almost like we timed this too. That Ken Burns, we timed it with Ken Burns. And now C. Marie is in this film called Return of the Grizzly, narrated by the dude. The dude abides. That's the best right there. What would the dude do? He would say, yes, we should bring them back. And there's a preview in Moscow on the 21st as it happens. You may know Doug Peacock is making this film and C. Marie's in it. You may know him by another name, George Washington Carver Hayduke. Yeah, Hayduke. Monkey Wrench Gang. Oh, Ed Abbey's old buddy. Okay, so. Okay. We're going to skip to the end here. And I just one more poem? One more or two more? One more? That sounds like one more to me. All right. So I think this is a good one to end on. Many years ago, I was doing a hike right about this time of the year in the Mount Baker Wilderness up to one of those fire lookouts. So this poem comes from that experience. How we look. Oh, and it's for this being right here. How we look. Fur fat and stock still in the trail, they appear to be looking into a mythic sky, posed for a feral portrait, or a wish to draw us closer before they turn and level a frontal marmot scrutiny. The way their noses aim askance says they're not here, or we are gone, or we are here, but they're not sure. Upright on boulders, they are ready to tumble at the shrill signal if we become, in a blink, by sneeze or shuffle, believable. Our pack-heavy shapes gathered in their sky look up to Shuckson. How distant and present it juts. How sharp a lookout. Clarity we envy through tilted glass until from every nowhere the whiteout. When the peak disappears, we turn and labor down the moraine, switchbacking like mules silently spaced in the falling snow. While we drive our miles and climb to bright rooms, they settle below in a general huddle, slowing for their long dream. Between one flake and the infinite next, one pulse beat and the second, our burdened forms waver and loom, weave and are gone. Thank you. Any questiones? We have yes. You like morels too? Okay.
I always thought that the brown bear and the grizzly were two different types of bear. They sound like they're kind of the same family.
Some species.
Okay.
Brown bear.
I don't know, brown bears are not here.
Mm-hmm.
And my uncle actually went up to it and gave it some food, but didn't know it was a grizzly.
Wow.
It wasn't.
So there is a difference. Do they live in different areas? Or do they cohabitate?
They do live in different areas. I do know that around here, we don't have grizzlies, but people often mistake big black bear for grizzly. But we don't have them around here. We only have one tiny population in the Selkirk Range, right, in this state. Yeah. Yeah.
I have two questions. If you reintroduce them, where would they come from? They bring them down from Canada?
Yeah, or Montana. And we're only talking about a small population to begin with. Yes, yeah, like very small, like 10 or something.
The idea is to try and establish a population of 25 bears. To do that, they're proposing to bring in 3 to 7 bears a year for up to 5 years.
Yeah.
How
Now,
many bears did you have after 10 years?
what's that?
How many bears did you have after 10 years?
We don't know. That depends on obviously how many of the bears survive, how many cubs they have. But grizzly bears reproduce very slowly. They and muskox are the slowest reproducers in North America. So a grizzly population, in the best of circumstances, grows very slowly.
You sound like you have a biology degree from Harvard. True, as George Bush would say, that's a true fact. I miss that guy. You know, kind of. But you know, when I was thinking about your question there, how many would there be? I was also thinking about too, you know, in 1996, I was imagining that last bear being the last bear, you know.
Oh, I'm from online here. What do you hope readers and listeners learn and take away from their composition? And what advice from your experience would you give to other artists, writers, scientists to help them carry this message forward?
So 2 questions there. The first one, you know, I think as we were working on this book, what we want readers to take away is wonder, flabbergastement in Ross Gay's word, flabbergastement, connection, joy. You can hear it in the way we've written these. It's not monotonal. It's, you know, I mean, there's some heavier stuff in here, as you heard tonight. But we made a conscious decision while we acknowledged some of those, like our Columbia Basin pygmy rabbit and the odds, you know, we're also trying to bring back the Columbia Basin pygmy rabbit too, right? And the odds have been against them, but and you know, and we've lost much of our shrub steppe habitat and so forth, but you know, we acknowledge some of that in there, but you know, 2/3 of it, 3/4 of it, we try to really focus on joy and connection, because we want people to fall in love with being here and thinking differently about being in place and what that means. Because if you don't, you know, if you don't know the name of something, someone, you know, if you don't know their name, if the more, well, we'll say it this way, the more you know about them, the harder it is to disregard them. We wanted to, again, reveal our region as a communion of subjects. So that's what we're hoping for. And as in terms of my advice to other scientists and people engaged in this effort, I would say that we know we need to do a lot of work towards scientific literacy in our culture. And one of the ways to do that is through STEAM, through involving creative writers and artists in these efforts, because our scientists have such important stories to tell, but they have not been trained always. Some of them have, but many of them have not been trained how to tell them in a way that is more widely accessible, and we can help with that. Yeah. Okay.
This is kind of specific. So how can artists in the future get involved with projects like this?
Email Gordon Congdon. Just kidding. You know what? I would direct you to the Spring Creek Project, which is housed at Oregon State University. And they are the reason they do this kind of work all the time, where they're so for example, at the H.J. Andrews Experimental Forest in Blue River, Oregon, that's a 200-year long-term ecological forest where they're studying the decomposition of trees, the flow of the creeks, everything. They're studying everything in the forest over 200 years. And alongside that scientific data, they're always inviting artists in, musicians, poets, novelists, like Robin Wall Kimmerer was one of their residents. I was one of their residents. Richard Powers may have gone there too, the Overstory. But that's a great place to look because they're doing this work and they're wanting to involve people in residencies that they have there and elsewhere. I did 2 such residencies, field residencies at Mount St. Helens, Lewitt, which is where much of the information, the data, and anecdotes for the Lewitt community came from. I hung out with scientists. I got to hang out with these men and women who'd been studying the regeneration at Mount St. Helens since it cooled down in late May of 1980, since it was cool enough for them to start walking there. Jerry Franklin, I got to hang out with them and they took me to their data and I got to see all that. It was amazing. It was incredible to see that beautiful work, and the devotion that these scientists have to their work is stunning. I'm in awe of it. Okay, so I'm being told we have no more questions. Okay.
If you'd like to hang out,
Okay.
I want to give people a chance.
Okay.
So let's put it together for Derek. Thank you, Derek. Yeah. Thanks for being here, and thanks everybody for coming. We've got another next week on Thursday, so hope you can make it if you're around. Everybody get home safe. Thank you.